Good evening, everybody. So welcome to the March. Actually, this is a picture here of the as you I'm sure you know, since you're all based in Ottawa, Parliament Hill with the Ukrainian colors in sympathy with our friends in Ukraine that are going through a really bad time right now. Welcome to March 28th EVCO meeting. Let's go right to the agenda. So we've got a few different things on the agenda today. So first thing is I'm going to give you a very, very brief project update, and then most of the project talking will happen from EnviroCenter. So Jen and Stuart, I'll let them introduce themselves once we get to their part in 2 slides. But Jen and Stuart are going to be talking about the project, and essentially reviewing some of the things that we should be conscious of in terms of dealing with the public and all that, right? So the importance for us there is that we want our events to be as successful as possible. I know some of you will see this as repeat, right? Because some of you have been through all sorts of training in the past. So some of the content will be repeat, but I think it's a good refresher to have. And actually, we're making this mandatory for people who want to volunteer. Okay, so I always hate to make things mandatory, but we do want to make sure that we have a level of training that's basic. We want to have a what do you call that? Common ground, if you will, a common way of answer questions, and also bring people up to the minimum level, right? So we'll go through the training, and you'll be more than welcome to ask any questions throughout the training that they will be doing. Then we'll talk about the EV News as we usually do. So Mike's got an excellent presentation again this month on that. Then we'll talk about past and future events as we normally do. I do expect that we're going to spend a bit of time here because we are starting to line up some of the events with EnviroCenter, some of them without EnviroCenter. So you'll see that our calendar is rapidly going to become busy over the next month or so. And then we'll do the roundtable. Okay. So yeah. Okay. So the update. So you remember last time I told you that the name for a project was Go EV, right? We found out, thank you, Lynn, by the way, we found out that there's someone else in the, I believe it's in the Brantford area, that's doing a project that's also funded by NRCan, which is using Go EV as its name. So because of that, and in consultation with EnviroCenter and the other partners that are involved in this, we changed the name. And essentially, we've gone back to a name that had been proposed by, I can't remember who it is, but someone from our team had proposed it, and it's going to be EV Experience. Okay. So Jennifer is going to go over the logos and all that, what they look like, what we have up to now. But the new name will be EV Experience. So you're probably thinking, well, aren't other people using this same name? Yeah, there are some other projects out there that use a similar name. However, we thought that this was very reflective of what we're doing, and there is nobody else, as far as we know, being funded by NRCan that's doing a project using that name, and it translates really well. So I know that I'm very happy with the name, and that's what we've settled on. Is there anything else? So that's it for me for now. So Jennifer, do you want to start off your side of it?
Well, actually, Stuart's going to start us off,
Stuart?
and then
Okay.
I'm going to do the second half.
Okay.
So we're going to switch it backwards on you.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, so yeah, hi everyone, I'm Stuart Staymaker. I'm the Sustainable Transportation Manager at EnviroCenter, and yeah, as Jen was just saying, we've got this presentation in 2 halves, so I'm going to take the first half and just give some background to this project, which some of you may already know through previous conversations with Raymond, and then Jen's going to talk a bit about how EnviroCenter does outreach. So Raymond, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, thank you. So yeah, I mean, as some of you may well be familiar with EnviroCenter already, we're a non-profit based here in Ottawa. And our core mission really is supporting people with sustainable lifestyles and trying to get people to take action on climate in their own lives. And our work focuses on 4 key areas. These are green homes, green lifestyle, green business, and today's topic, green transportation. So if you can go to the next slide. So just some of the examples of some of the transportation programs that we do and have done at Enviro Centre. So EV Experience, which is of course what we are talking about today, is one of them, but tied to that in the past has been Drive Green Ottawa. So that's included a speaker series and EV myth busting, for example. The TravelWise program we deliver on behalf of the city. And then there's our active transportation and school transportation programs. So notably, for example, that includes the Let's Bike campaign in the month of June. So that's a little bit about us. And if you can just go to the next slide, please.
Yeah, just a note for people who aren't aware, but if you look at the picture that's there in the top left corner, that's the event at IKEA, I believe, right? So
Yep.
It's one of the events that we participated at. So we've been doing lots of things with Enviro Centre over the last few years.
Cool. So yeah, in terms of the background, I thought I'd just start off with a little bit of why we are doing this project. And some of you may already know this through just being involved in the EV world, but the city projects that 90% of new vehicle sales in the city have to be zero emission vehicles by 2030. And right now we're at 2.6% or around 2.6%. So we have a long way to go in not very much time, and tied to that as well is the fact that GHG emissions from transportation are the second largest source of GHG emissions in Ottawa, as it is pretty much everywhere else. So again, we need to reduce those emissions from transportation by almost 30% by 2030. So a long way to go with that. And Enviro Centre, of course, we love things like cycling, for example, but we realise that not everyone is ready to go car free. It's not realistic for everyone. So EVs do, of course, have a huge part in helping us to reach those GHG reduction targets. Of course, I'm sure as most of you know and may have been through some of these experiences yourself, there are some obstacles to people adopting EVs into their life. But that's lack of experience, familiarity with them, or misconceptions, common things such as the range of how far you can go on one charge, and lack of opportunities to take test drives in EVs as well. Next slide. And so this project is all about, as some of you may know already from what Raymond has told you before, is about getting people first-hand experience with EVs. And we know from research that this really does work, that once people have that first-hand experience with EVs, that they are way more likely to purchase those cars and to adopt those and bring those into their life. So various stats and research and studies that we know from preparing for this project, which are on the screen there. Next slide. So yeah, in terms of what this project actually is and what it is doing, so EV Experience, we're expected to launch in the spring, and then it's going to run through until March of next year. So we've got about 1 year and a couple of days at this point of the project. And there's some headline things that the project is delivering. The first of these is that it is going to help with the acquisition of 5 new zero-emission vehicles into the communal auto car share fleet in Ottawa. There are currently no cars in the fleet right now, so that is great that hopefully there'll be 5 in the fleet. And those cars should all be Kia Niros, and they're going to be available for regular communal auto users, so they can take them out for whatever they do, any regular trips that a normal communal auto member would do right now, whether it's for going to Gatineau Park or visiting family or going to the grocery store. But those vehicles will also be available for test drives as well. So whether those are test drives through events or through other means, those cars will be part of this project. And then on the subject of events, we have 25 events that we are scheduled to deliver for this project, and we're looking to do those in this year over the from the spring through to the fall, because even though this project is going through to March of next year, events are likely to all be outside, and obviously from October onwards, it's not going to be great weather for doing events outside. So of those 25 events, 20 would be in the community, and 5 would be at workplaces. And we're looking at really a mixture of weekdays and weekends for those events. So the workplace ones, those 5 workplace events, those are very likely to be all on weekdays, just naturally due to when people will be at work. But the 20 events in the community would be a mixture of the weekends and the weekdays. So something we've been talking to Raymond and Mike about is having test drive Tuesdays, for example. So on regular Tuesdays throughout the summer, it's going to different parts of the city to host an event on a Tuesday, sort of afternoon, evening time, where people from that community can come out and learn about the EVs and experience them and take them for test drives and test rides. But also to have some weekend events as well. So those weekday events could be things that we're organising ourselves, whereas the weekend events would be ones where we're trying to piggyback on what someone else is doing. Next slide, please. The next sort of major piece that the project is delivering are the test drives. But we've also noticed that we want to make these test drives and test rides because not everyone may be comfortable driving a stranger's vehicle, particularly if that stranger is sitting next to them. So we've got test rides in there as well. And we're looking at sort of 2 different ways that this can happen. So this could be through events. So there's events I was talking about, those 25 in the community and at workplaces, or standalone test drives. So for example, with a virus center, someone could say we could have every say Wednesday from 9 a.m. to 12 noon, and say someone can come to us and go for a test drive with the Communion Auto, and we'll take that to their doorstep and we'll take them out on a test drive in that vehicle. Or it could be with Raymond, for example. Raymond might make himself available every Thursday, I don't know, afternoon, Raymond, 3 till 5 p.m, something like that, and say I'm going to make myself available. So if anyone from the public in Ottawa wants a test drive with me, I'll be available from those times. I'll go to their doorstep, whether it's their home or their workplace, and it will take them out for a test drive. So we're looking at these test drives at events, but also standalone test drives as well that people can book throughout the week. And so, yeah, these test drives or rides can be with the Communion Auto vehicles that have been added to the fleet. Could be with EVCO volunteers vehicles, and then maybe also with vehicles coming through from dealerships in the city as well. And the big sort of headline target with the test drives is we're looking for 800 between now and the end of March. And the other big piece is, go back. The other big piece is a website, so a brand new website. This will be the platform where people can book those test drives. They'll be able to see the event schedule of when all those events are happening and where they are, and also a place where people can find some educational resources, point them in the right direction for where they can go to find out more about EVs. Now you can go to the next slide. And so I thought I would show the test drive and ride process for you. This is a simplified version of a very complex flowchart that I made a few weeks ago, and I thought that'd be a bit too much for this meeting. So I'll try to break it down into the headline pieces here for you. So basically what's starting over there on the left is having those events confirmed throughout the year, and also getting confirmed dates and times when people and EVCO and Communion Enviro Center be available to do these standalone test drives as well. And putting all that information together, populating our booking tool with that information. And then when someone comes to our website, whether they've come to it direct or they've seen the URL on the side of the trailer or they've through social media, they can come to our websites and they can book a test drive or a test ride. Likewise, they could be coming straight to us for an event in the neighborhood, in their community, and they want to take a test drive then and there. So someone's going to book that test drive. They're going to complete a liability waiver, some sort of at the top in the middle there. We're going to check the driver's license to make sure that all is good with their driver's license. It's a very quick and easy process that can be done on the government's website. Going to confirm that booking, and as needed, we'll confirm or share those details with EVCO. We're then going to plan a route. So particularly for like events, knowing in advance when those will be, planning a local route in the community that is safe and minimizing the risks so that people are going to be out driving a car that is new to them. And then on the actual time of the test drive and the event, before someone gets in the car, checking ID to make sure that who they are who they say they are. We'll need to be flexible with COVID, so likely checking people's vaccination status, for example. And then actually delivering, attending and completing those test drives and those events. And at the end, when someone's done the test drive, we would like to do a post-test drive survey with them. So if you've been responsible for doing that test drive with someone, we want to encourage them to do a test drive before they run off and they go away, and not a test drive, to do the post-test drive survey before they run off. So, for example, the events will likely have some iPads that people can use for that purpose. And so just on this chart here, I did put a couple of different colors. The lighter green are the ones where I see the EVCO volunteers more likely having a role to play. So right at the start, confirming like availability for events and doing test drives. And then when it actually comes to the delivery, being there in person, doing those events, checking people's IDs, doing the test drives, helping the events, and getting people to do those surveys at the end of their test drive experience.
So Craig has got his hand up. Craig, do you have a question?
I was just wondering, as far as the FSD, showing off FSD, have you thought of, have you started programming the website? Is that something that you're going to sort of allow people to flag or whatever if they want to see someone use FSD?
I would personally vote against that.
I might be sounding incredibly stupid here, but I do not know what FSD is. So
I'll take that, Stuart. So FSD is full self-driving. It's a Tesla thing that's slowly rolling out, but it's a beta thing. No, Craig, we're not going to be doing that at all. This is for people to test drive EVs. They're not necessarily going to be Teslas. They'll be something else. And because FSD isn't rolled out, it's not a real thing that people can actually use day to day. There's no point in showing it off because it's more of a gimmick at this point. So the goal of this project is more to get people in cars, driving them themselves, to experience what it's like to own and live and drive with an EV.
So Jennifer,
so hold on, like that is being able to go from your driveway to your grocery store and it pulls in without ever having to touch the wheel.
Craig, Craig, we're not going to discuss this right now, but FSD isn't available to all Tesla owners. It's only available to a few. It's a beta program. It's not something we're going to be showing the public.
Yeah,
this is out of scope.
If someone wants to see FSD, they could talk to Tesla, and Tesla will be able to do that for them, right? We need to be careful about how many criteria we have and how difficult we make it to determine which car is booked when and all that kind of stuff. So we need to keep things as simple as possible. Jennifer, you had something you wanted to say?
I just want to say that if it was possible to make the little square that says route planned plaid, I would have done that. So that it's very important that we actually have EVCO planning those routes, and then because they have a lot of intel there. So I would say that is definitely a shared responsibility, depending on whether it's an EVCO test drive or an EnviroCenter test drive. But I think at the event ones in particular, we're going to work with you guys.
Yes, absolutely. So for the event ones, we will predetermine the test drive, but like you say, for individual ones, it's a bit tougher because you may be doing these just about anywhere in the city, right? But one of the things I would encourage people to do, and I think we should cover this more systematically in our technical training, is to if they are choosing a route, you choose a route that's as safe as possible, including the fewer left turns as possible. So try to always do right turns and try to go on streets that are less busy, right? Because the last thing we want is for some accident or something to occur, right? So we want it to be as smooth as possible. So good point, Jen. Okay, so Stuart, any other questions before we go? We keep on going, no? So Stuart? You're on mute.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. So yeah, next slide, please. So yeah, just in terms of who's involved in this project. So EnviroCentre, as you all gathered at this point, we're leading on the project, and we have funding through from Natural Resources Canada, as well as OCAF, that's the Ottawa Climate Action Fund. And in terms of the partners helping with this, of course, EVCO, here we are, and Commune also, as well as the City, Hydro Ottawa, and Smartness Alliance. So these are all the people who are involved in making this project happen.
Yeah, and actually, I'll just say a tiny bit more about Communauto in this context. So EnviroCentre in particular is very interested in promoting active transportation, right? Because active transportation is better than individual car ownership for a bunch of reasons, including environmental reasons, right? So we do want to highlight Communauto in this. The reason they were brought in as a partner is to get around some of the issues surrounding insurance and all that, right? And that's why we want to use also some dealer vehicles because there's an issue with if you as an individual. So I'll take my example with my Model Y. If I do a test drive with my Model Y and I'm paid to deliver the test drive, that becomes a problem because my insurance won't cover it. And commercial insurance that would cover that costs about $5,000 per vehicle, right? So bringing Communauto in allowed us to work around that. And also it provides us an opportunity to get Communauto further ahead in terms of electrifying their fleet. And that will allow other people, aside from the people that we work with during this project, to be exposed to electric vehicles. So there's a number of different benefits, additional benefits that we get by doing that. So we're very happy to have Communauto on board as one of our partners.
Yeah, and I think one of the stats up earlier on also talks, one of those was about how the impact of car share. So if you're using an EV that is a part of a car share fleet, that is also a positive, impact. I think as you're saying, Raymond, and people are a lot more likely to recommend EVs to their families and friends and so on if they've had a really direct positive experience of them through a car share program. So yeah, lots of benefits with that.
And certainly we will want to make sure the Communauto is very successful on that front, right? So we'll want to be helping them to make sure that that they don't run into problems and address any issues that come up with over time, right? So yeah.
Okay. So yeah, next slide, please. Thank you. So yeah, for us, we see the role of EVCO volunteers in this being what is on the screen, and again, this probably correlates with what you've heard before from Raymond and Mike, for example, but really about engaging with the public about EVs and the project, and will include working with the EnviroCentre staff to support and deliver the events, all those events I was talking about earlier, but also being there to sort of help with delivering the test drives and rides as well. And so yeah, I think I've got a couple of final slides before I hand over to Jen. So this is the branding. So I don't think this has been seen by too many people so far. This hasn't been publicly revealed yet. So some of you you're ahead of the curve, or ahead of the game in seeing this. So we have the EV Experience branding here. We've got it in both the English and the French. We think the logo it works particularly well because it's sort of like that mirror image between the English on one side and the French on the other, with the X to represent experience. And we particularly like the lightning bolt through the middle of the X, and I think having consulted with Raymond and Mike on this, they were equally excited about that. So we hope that you all like this branding. And I've got a few examples on the next slide as well of it being applied. So these are not the final products, but we have a hat there, which would be for people to wear at events, a vest as well. And then, of course, there's the trailer that's been purchased by EVCO. And so this is a mock-up of what the trailer could look like with the branding on it. So there'll be the logo and the name and the website on there, as well as the logos for all the project partners and funders as well. So yeah, that's some background to the project. I'm going to hand over to Jen now to talk a little bit about outreach in EnviroCenter style.
Okay, so just before we go there, I just want to note it's not on this version of the wrap for the trailer, but we'll have evexperience.ca is the domain name that was purchased for the project. So, and there's a French equivalent, I think, right? This has been purchased. So I think it's going to work really well with the name of the project. So
yeah, the website in French is likely to be evexperience.ca/fr, just for clarity. But yeah. So
a couple of things we're going to do. So we're going to ask you to sign some kind of a release and acknowledgement that you've seen this training and all that kind of stuff. That's for insurance purposes and to make sure that we do want to make sure that people have the correct information, particularly when it comes to sensitive issues like harassment, that kind of stuff, right? So also, like I said earlier, I sort of said this verbally earlier, the technical training. So we'll give you, Mike and I are finalizing the information on that there. So we've got some technical training that's almost complete that we'd like to deliver to you guys sometime in April. And here the goal, like I said earlier before, the goal is not, we realize most of you probably will know the answers to a good portion of the questions. The idea is to equip you with what would help you answer questions that you would get from the public, right? And hopefully we could have a bit of fun also at the same time when we're doing this, because it certainly could be interesting. So for EnviroCenter also, we'd like to the technical training to be a bit more intensive. So we're still talking about that with Stuart. I talked to Stuart and Stuart this morning about this, and but we'll talk to Stuart and Jen about this. We'd like to do give the EnviroCenter people, who I believe none of them have EVs, right? There may be a few, but most do not have EVs, right, Jen? Or Stuart, yeah. So we want to give them sort of like the, I was going to say the full Monty, no. We want to give them the full EV experience, right?
Yeah.
So so we want to give them an opportunity to drive a car. And we want to do this mostly with two vehicles in particular. So my Tesla Model Y in particular, because it's a good indication of what the Tesla technology looks like. And also the Mike's Ioniq 5, because it's very close to what the Kia Niro will be like. Okay, so we'd like the EnviroCenter folks to get an experience that's as close to the Niro as possible. Once we get the Niro, we'll want to do something to have everybody have a really good look at it, so that they could familiarize themselves a bit with the vehicle before they do test drives. Okay. So we will have signups available for the specific events right now. We'll talk about this later. April 23rd in Kempville. This will be EVCO only, not EnviroCenter, but EVCO only. But we will be asking later on in this meeting for people who'd like to participate in that. Okay. Any further questions, comments? Cool. Nothing else? Okay, so let's get to the next item on the agenda. I think the roundtable may be a bit short today, but we'll try to get through the content here. Mike's got a really good news section. So, Mike.
Thanks, Raymond. All right, so this month was a bit of a busy month. Lots of exciting stuff. As I mentioned last month, VW was going to reveal the new Volkswagen bus, and they have. Unfortunately, it's coming out in Europe first. It's going to be a 5-seater in Europe with a smaller wheelbase, shorter battery, but we'll eventually make it to North America for the 2024 model year. And in North America, it'll seat 7, so it'll be actually more of a minivan. They're seeing it as a really micro bus right now for Europe. But that's what it looks like. And there are 5 paint schemes with 2 tones. All of them have a white top and then a different color on the bottom. And they also have a bunch of, normal, like full color paint schemes if you're into that. About 480 kilometer range. They haven't actually confirmed the range figures yet. And that would be on the WLTP cycle for Europe, which is a little optimistic. But you can count on the North American battery, which will be bigger, to have better range than what they have in Europe right now. Next slide, please. Oh, and it's rear-wheel drive, just like the OG van. CATL, or CATL, as some people call them, they've patented an anode-free sodium-ion battery. So if you're not like a nerd like me into battery technology, you might not appreciate what a big deal this is. But basically what they've done is they have patented a battery that uses one of the cheapest elements on Earth as the main part of the battery. It's salt. And these batteries haven't been really in widespread use for a while or ever because they aren't as energy dense as lithium ion. So the big breakthrough here that CATL did is they got rid of the anode, which is how you get dendrites and all the rest, which degrade the batteries. So they got rid of that because they don't need it anymore. And they managed to get the density up above 200 watt hours per kilogram, which is within shouting distance of the 250 watt hours per kilogram that a 2170 cell in the Tesla gets. So now they're pretty decent energy density. They will be a little heavier and still a bit bigger than lithium ion, but these batteries are much cheaper to make, much more abundant, easier to mine, and they're a lot more robust. You can abuse these things. They won't degrade over time like lithium ions do. There's reports that you can like stab them and they won't catch fire and stuff like that. So who knows? But I mean, these are patents they expect to go into production next year. And so we should be seeing them in cars in China because that's where CATL is based, probably next year. And then hopefully they'll, just take over the market because these batteries look awesome. Next slide, please. All right, keeping in the battery world, Stellantis and LG have announced a 45 gigawatt hour battery cell factory for Windsor. It'll be Canada's first gigafactory. Expected to start production in 2024, so in 2 years. And they're going to support Chrysler and Stellantis's electrification plans. I don't know if you know, but Stellantis, I think I've mentioned it in news in the past, Stellantis has big plans for North American cars to go all electric by 2030, and so this will be a big chunk of that. Go ahead.
45 gigawatt hour, that's enough for about 500,000 vehicles, I believe, right?
Yeah, that's about 500,000 cars a year.
Yeah.
So not insignificant.
And for the non-EV nerds, Stellantis makes Dodge, Chrysler, Fiat, Ferrari, a bunch of those.
Right. I've made that joke. It sounds like a drug for adult dysfunction for men, but really, it's a conglomerate company that makes all the Ram, Jeep, Chrysler, Dodge, all those. It's all under Stellantis now. That's their company. That's their parent company.
In Europe, they have Peugeot. What else do they have?
Citroën. They have a whole bunch.
They have Fiat. They have
just a bunch.
Alfa Romeo, I think.
Yep, they have Alfa as well. All the ones that keep breaking. Yeah. All right. Volkswagen plans a $7 billion investment into North American EV production. This will be in support of their Chattanooga, Tennessee factory and the one they have down in Mexico, where they make all the Volkswagens for North America. Because Volkswagen, I don't know if you know this, but Volkswagen is going all electric. And they're probably one of the companies that will survive by 2030, whereas some of the other ones, like maybe Stellantis, might not. So that's a lot of money being invested by Volkswagen in North America. Huzzah.
Yeah, and the ID4, the wait for that is like 2 or 3 years right now because of some problems in
because they're only being made right now in Germany, and the boat that had them coming to North America caught fire and sank because of a Porsche, and so there's a bit of a backlog on ID4s. But now, hopefully by the end of this year, they will be producing ID4s in Tennessee, so supply should increase. So if you're waiting for an ID4, keep waiting a little bit longer.
Yeah, so also the plant in Europe has been shut down because
Yeah, that was in last month's news. It was shut down. They're looking at reopening it soon. They found a different supplier for the wiring harnesses, but the wiring harnesses were produced in Ukraine.
Mhm.
And thanks to the Russians, those harnesses are not being produced in Ukraine right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so those, anyway. If you are a fan of Chevrolet and you do not like the Bolt, then there is a 2024 Chevy Equinox that was just revealed. It'll be $30,000 US, which is actually fairly affordable. 500-ish kilometers of range, 480. It'll go on sale next year as a 2024 model. And they've been teasing this vehicle forever. So it's finally nice to see that they've revealed it, and it looks pretty good. So good job, Chevy. That's all I can say about that.
I think it looks beautiful.
I think it looks good.
gorgeous
Yeah.
car.
And hopefully they don't use LG batteries.
They've also put out a slight render of it in a video on their website now, so you can see a little bit more of it than just the front and just like a nice walk around.
Oh, nice. Yeah, because they used to have just teasers of like the bumper and stuff, and that was meh. But
yeah, they show where the charging port is, the size of the wheels. They have a two-tone option, so the roof is different color than the body.
Yeah,
it's kind of cool.
Yeah. All right. So everyone's favorite anti-EV company, Toyota, are cutting production by 17% because they insist on not having EVs. They're blaming it on semiconductor shortage and COVID-19 because apparently that's still a thing for them. They've been very reluctant. They only have one EV that's in limited sale. That's the BZ4X or BZ4X as they call it in the US. These cuts from Toyota contrast sharply with the likes of Tesla, Volkswagen, Ford, and Hyundai, all of whom have somehow, despite the chip shortage, managed to increase production of EVs in recent months. So everyone out, those four companies at least are ramping up, and Toyota's ramping down. So take that for what you will. Europe has hit 20% market share, so they are on the steep part of the adoption curve now. Now that it's juiced a little because the overall EV market or the overall vehicle market is shrinking a little bit, as it is pretty much everywhere just because of COVID and parts shortages and whatnot. But EVs have continued to increase year over year. So even despite the part shortages and whatnot, EV registrations and EV sales, basically using registrations as a proxy, they've increased 38% year over year. So despite any issues, people are obviously still buying more and more EVs. They've been rising fast in recent months. The Model 3 and Model Y is expected dominate the market, especially with Giga Berlin coming online. You can expect the Model Y to start growing really fast. Interestingly, in the report, Hyundai Kia saw significant year-over-year growth, up 25%. And they've managed to avoid all the issues with the chip shortage and whatnot because they'd never cut down on their orders when COVID hit. So they have been just making cars like normal. So they're completely unaffected. Take notes, Toyota.
Yeah, so my understanding is the South Korean government is perhaps helping out there too. So
yeah. All right, now we're moving into the Tesla corner, some people's favorite corner. Giga Texas or Giga Austin is holding a grand opening event on April 7th. So things are getting real now. I love the look of the invitation they sent out. It looks really cyberpunk, which is what I'm into. But anyway, that's why I have a cyber metallic gray car. Never mind. It's expected that the first vehicles will be delivered on April 7th. That's assuming all the permits and everything get signed in time. Otherwise, it'll just be a big party. But anyway, the things are getting real at Texas, and April 7th is the day to watch. And over in Giga Berlin, Elon Musk started handing over cars personally. So there he is at Giga Berlin, handing over the first Model Ys to German customers. I think he signed parts of the car or something for these people. So that was interesting, I guess. So it's a big milestone. That means Giga Berlin is open for business and pumping out vehicles. Expected capacity will be 500,000 cars per year. They probably won't hit that this year. but that is the plan for the first phase of the ramp. They won't be using the new cells. They will be using 2170s instead of the 4680s. So Giga Texas will be building Model Ys with the new technology. Giga Berlin is still using the 2170s as the Model Ys currently are being built with. So they do plan on moving to 4680 at some point. Hertz is adding Model Y to the fleet. So as you might remember, they did a huge Model 3 order. They did not get a bulk discount. They just ordered them retail just like everyone else. And so now they're doing the same thing with Model Ys. It's not clear. Hertz has said that they plan on adding 100,000 EVs to their fleet. It's unclear if those will be 100,000 Model 3s or whether it'll be a mix of Model 3, Model Y, or whether they'll add other EVs into that mix. But anyway, that's a lot of EVs they're adding to their fleet. If you live in the States, you can actually rent cars via Hertz now. They are available in some markets. I know Transport Evolved rented one for a bit, and they did some videos on that, so that was kind of neat. And yeah, they are paying full retail price, so that's pretty cool. Although that might delay your Model Y order if you're waiting for one. I think this is the last one for Tesla. They are going to finish development, according to Elon Musk at the earnings call earlier this year. They're going to finish development of the Cybertruck in 2022, with plans to start production in early 2023. I made a typo in that slide, so that should be 2023. It was originally unveiled, if you remember, way back in the before times, 2019. Supposed to come to market 2021. It was delayed to 2022 and has now been delayed to 2023. But hopefully, assuming that they do actually finish development, and there have been some interesting test vehicles driving around getting spy shotted with side mirrors and whatnot. So it looks like there's been some progress on Cybertruck. So you don't have to wait that much longer. Just hold on. And I think that's it for slides. I think Stephen has a question.
Stephen has a question, yeah.
Go ahead,
Mike,
Steve.
Steve here. Just a quick question for you. You referenced the invite for Giga Barbecue. Do you, you actually have an invite?
No. That's from the internet.
Oh, okay. The way you said it, I wasn't sure. Just an add-on question. The 4860 versus the current body battery configuration of Model Y. I wonder if you could just expand on that a bit, just maybe a little education here.
Yeah, sure. So the what Tesla's done is for the Model Y, they've re-engineered the battery pack to have bigger cells. So they're called 4680s. They're bigger than the 2170s. It's all millimeters, but they're bigger cans basically. And what they're doing is by making the cells bigger, they're going to make them structural to the vehicle. So they won't be in like individual modules wrapped in metal and then put into the pack. They'll be part of the car, like structurally part of the vehicle. Which ultimately saves weight and increases energy density. I don't have the exact figure of energy density increase, but it's something around, we know that the 2170s were like 250 watt hours per 100 kilograms or whatever it was, or kilowatts per 100. It was in the slide earlier. The 4680s are closer to 300 watt hours per kilogram or whatever it is. So it's a significant increase in density, but also they're going to reduce weight because they don't have all this extra metal structure stuff that's forming the packs.
Hey, I went down to Myers Hyundai and by the Canadian Tire Center on Saturday and took a test drive in Iconic 5. Congratulations! They told me they're looking at October deliveries right now.
Yeah, it's about right. Yeah, over a year.
No, October. No, they're saying October this year?
Yes.
No. Oh, this year.
Yeah. At the minimum. Maybe later, but they couldn't give a hard and fast date.
Oh, that's I heard it was over a year. I wouldn't be surprised if it was October 2023.
Yeah, but you know,
I heard it was over a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I've heard different things too. I've heard some people saying somewhere around 6 months still. So I think that like you were saying before, the Kia and Hyundai haven't had the part shortages that the others have, so so they seem to be able to deliver faster.
They do, but there's still like demand for the Ioniq 5 outstripped what they were expecting.
Oh yeah,
it's an amazing car. So yeah.
Demand for all the EVs is booming right now, right? So, but my Model Y is better than the Ioniq 5.
So I just did. For those of you who
That is
don't
highly
follow me on
debatable.
Facebook or whatever, I just did a 1,000-kilometer road trip to pick up a barrel in my Ioniq 5, and it was fantastic. I drove down to Toronto and back on Friday to pick up an oil drum.
Did it try to run over a cyclist?
No, but it was funny
It's
when I
better
picked
than
up
the Model Y.
when I picked up the oil drum, it fit perfectly in the trunk of the Ioniq 5. Like it was like it belonged there. And the guy who sold it to me was like, "Oh, well, you can just hook it into your gas tank and go forever." And I'm like, "This is an electric car." And he looked at me like I was an alien. Like he's like, "What do you mean it's electric? You're from Ottawa? What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah." But the car charges so fast, it was almost annoying because we would get to a fast charger, right? We used Petrocan and Electrify Canada, we just depending on where we were. And we would plug it in, go to the washroom, order food, and walk back to the car because I suspected it would be done pretty quick. And like I didn't have time to eat. So I was a little annoyed because it was like if this only charged a little slower, I would have time to eat. But anyway. It's
So
a great car.
I've had that many times in the Model S where I was on the toilet and my phone buzzes and like, "You're ready to continue your trip." I'm like, "No, I'm not."
You're like, "No, I'm really not. I would need to eat."
So apparently it's a fairly common complaint with superchargers V3 that they're actually too fast. So which is kind of ironic, but anyway.
Right. But yeah, so I did a 1,000-kilometer cannonball run effectively with my buddy, and we did it in 12 hours. And yeah, that was. I don't think we could have done it any faster in a gas car, to be honest.
Cool.
Yeah. So I think that's it for slides for me for now.
Yeah, that is
There we
it.
go.
Thank you very much, Mike. I think both Stuart and Jennifer are gone. I think so. I was going to thank them, but I
Yeah, they waved goodbye. And
Okay.
yes, Phil, I'll sound like a Tesla owner, but for Hyundais, exactly. I mean, we got to counter Tesla fans, right? Somehow.
So I have to say it is a pretty awesome vehicle.
I was cruising at a leisurely 110 to answer Lawrence's question. But yeah, we were just chilling. We were having a fun day.
Spencer says Tesla is just a corner. He says it's more than a corner in your presentation. Anyways, Sam, you had a question, comment?
Yeah, I just want to know, you still recording this?
Yes.
Okay, because I just heard you say that it's a pretty cool car, so I want to make sure it's on file.
Excellent.
You're funny.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Smart ones this time? No.
I guess the only other thing I would add is I saw somebody loading up an Ioniq 5. They had a car seat in one seat. It's single stroller already in the car. They bought a double stroller and they came with 2 adults and their kid. And I'm like, it all fit, which is amazing to me.
Yeah, man, it's a TARDIS. I should have gotten the blue one.
I had a picture of like my car next to it, and they have the same footprint, but clearly one is built for storage and the other one that mine is not. So
yeah, there was someone who reached out to me that has a Mike, what car was it again? A Subaru Forester.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
And they actually went to a dealer to see one of them, to see the Ioniq 5, and they seem to be very interested by it. It's very spacious, right? So yeah, it's a very, very interesting vehicle. Very interesting. The Kia Kia whatever
EV6.
EV6 looks similarly interesting. So very similar, but slightly different styling. But yeah, they're pretty good.
Yeah.
Cool. Any other comments, questions?
Yeah, Phil's asking the charge rate. So we were charging consistently at 130 kilowatts, like the whole time. Like it was amazing. I would plug it in. It would start at 70 kilowatts and then ramp up to 130 and just hold it until 80%. Wow. But the maximum is 250 theoretically, or actually 350 theoretically. But anyway, that's probably in the summer when it's warm out.
Wow, cool. Mark, he said, mentioned the ZEV program considering rebates for purchase of used vehicles. I haven't seen an announcement, but that was there was speculation on that. That may be announced in the upcoming budget. I know I did notice over the last couple of days some people saying that the government had officially announced that they were putting more money into the IZEV program to continue it after the 31st of March. But I don't believe they've announced any changes in particular. I expect to see some changes with the upcoming budget whenever it's released. Okay. Okay, let's try to sail through this part. So in terms of past events, there wasn't a huge amount over the last little while. There was one virtual green drink, which I missed this one, unfortunately. But they were talking about, what was it they were talking about? It was energy advisor and all that. Okay, cool. And the connecting environmental professionals. Okay, cool. So I don't know if anybody had a chance to look at that. It's they've recorded it. So if you're interested, this would be particularly useful for people who are looking to work in the environmental sector, mostly energy and all that kind of stuff. So so anyways, I would encourage you to go to see that if you're interested. So in terms of past events, there's really only one, and this is one thing that I did, and actually Mitchell attended this also. So what I did with that particular, and the reason I want to talk about it a bit here is that this is one of the condo boards that got an Enviri estimate that was somewhat outlandish, if I could put it politely. And they had several tiers of investment that they were proposing to the condo board, but all of them were prohibitively expensive. So when the condo board saw that, they said, well, if you're not going to invest in this, it's going to cost way too much, right? What's the cost benefit for us? There's chargers across the street. This is a condo on McLeod. There's charges across the street at the Museum of Nature. People could use those charges if they need to. We're not going to put anything in their building, right? So turns out that actually Sam got involved in the discussions earlier with them on this. And actually, Sam, they may be reaching out to you following the presentation that I did. But essentially, they have a whole bunch of 120 volt plugs in their garage, right? And there's, I don't know if Daryl is here or not, but Daryl would tell you that 120 volt is good enough for just about anybody. And he's right. So what we talked about is the fact that they could be having a program where they charge a flat rate to the people who want to have access to EV charging and use the existing infrastructure until such point as they run out of the circuits they have. They have a lot of circuits. It's something like one double plug every second stall or something of the sort. So they have a lot available. But at some point they'll run out of capacity with those 120 volt circuits. So so at that point, what I recommended is they go to a fancier system that then they could leverage the cost over a whole bunch of different vehicles. And also they'll be able to take advantage of whatever newer technology pops up over the next 5 to 10 years. Because if you do the math and you look at our fairly aggressive projections of what the future will look like in terms of market share, we're even with an optimistic projection. It's likely that the fleet in Ottawa will be somewhere around 30% electrified by 2030, right? So that's 30%. That's only a third of the fleet, right? So so what we're proposing to them is not to rush out and put a whole bunch of infrastructure in there, but wait a bit, wait to see what comes up in terms of technology, right? So vehicle to grid will probably be a factor in all that. So so do what you need to do right now with the existing circuits you have, and revisit 5 to 10 years down the road, right? Dan, you had a question or comment?
Yeah, I do. I think you may have just answered it for me right there, but also, is that Enviri's general recommendation is level 2 charging across condo parking lots, garages?
Well,
It's the can I go first?
Yep.
It's the same recommendation I got when I used to live at a condo. It's the same recommendation they seem to have provided here. And my understanding is they provide an overview of like the full conversion of an entire parking lot all at once, rather than what you might need given the number of EVs there are currently. They're like Raymond probably is going to say is like when there's only 1 or 2 people that have an EV or thinking about an EV, letting them know that the option of a 120 charger would probably be enough for most of their daily commuting. And if they're not going anywhere on the weekend, it's more than enough. That's kind of where I think the conversation gets lost, because everybody thinks you need a level 2. I know like there's 3 or 4 people I know personally that have a level 1, and they've only had a level 1 since they bought their car years ago. And it works fine if they don't travel long distances, and when they do, they'll use a level 3. So
yeah, and to be very clear, the idea is not to recommend level 1, right? So the idea is get as many EVs as possible early, charging in that building, and when you have enough EVs to justify spending a bit more money to put some 240 volt circuits in, then you would be putting those circuits in, right? So because eventually, if you look at projecting the future, what I believe is going to happen in particular is that we'll want to have vehicle to grid capabilities, and that will require more than just simple 120 volt circuits. It's if you want to do it in a real sense, we'll need 240, and we'll need individual plugs to every single stall, right? So that's what we but that'll work itself out over the next 5 to 10 years, right? And if you look at that building, they could probably, given the amount of capacity they have with their 120 volt circuits, they could probably charge 30% of the cars that would be there without a problem as it is, right? So let them get as much mileage as they can. The price of all the components is going to drop. The sophistication of the charging systems is going to increase, right? So it'll be better for them to make the big investment later. The other advantage is they're looking at charging a flat rate and maybe putting some of that money into a reserve fund that would provide them the funding for more infrastructure later, right? So this sounds like a Mitchell, I don't know how you felt coming out of the meeting, but it seemed to me like they were very happy to hear that there was a way for them to get started without investing tens of thousands of dollars to get going. And this is I think I convinced them it was a reasonable path forward, right? And I'd like to do the same thing with other condo boards, because I want to unblock this. I feel that Invari has gone around and they've scared everybody, and it's causing resistance to charging, right? So
yeah, I mean, to me, it's more so like everybody looks at it and says like it's $150,000, and like obviously nobody's planned out a $150,000 one-time expense after that condo is only 10 years old. So like if you haven't put together a reserve fund to account for that at any point, you're not going to come up with $150,000 to do it. So it's an instant no, because there's no money for it. If you instead look at what you currently have instead of what you think you might need, you could probably get by for at least those 10 years you'll need to build up that $150,000 to do a full renovation at some point. You might not need to do that for, say, 10 years.
The boards and the engineer in charge of the reserve fund study have the ability to spend up to 10% of the budget of the reserve fund at their discretion.
Yep.
So at the rate that EVs are rolling out at the moment, we could handle that rollout with 120 volt installations. That's important for my building, in especially we've got 425 parking spots in the underground parking garage here, and I've been talking to the boards. There are 3 boards involved in that parking garage. So it's important, especially to one of the boards, to really minimize on the costs.
Yeah.
So, and is that absolutely true, Raymond, that V2G won't work at 120? I don't see why it can't work at a slower rate.
It's just
Well,
the inverters aren't sized for it to do, like, the inverters that I'm thinking of are only operating at on a 3-phase 208. I don't think they do anything at 120.
so yeah, so I wouldn't say that it won't be possible, but I wouldn't want to them to go into a solution that would block them from being able to do it, right? So by going 120 right now and using that for the next 5 to 10 years, we'll see that shake out in the industry. And if there is 120 solutions that do vehicle to grid, then they'll be able to use them. They may actually, I didn't do the calculation, but they have so much overcapacity that they could probably put a 120 volt plug to every stall and still have excess capacity dedicated to every stall, because they have so much excess capacity, it's unreal.
Yeah.
Sam, you had a comment?
Oh, wait, just one other point. So a lot of the apartment buildings certainly used to have, and some still have, engine block warmers, which
Yes.
are all at 120. And so those parking lots, those surface parking lots, some of them have 120 distributed through them already. And those really are set up for EV charging, a level 1 EV charging.
Yeah, so my
No, they're not.
Yeah, so my understanding is they're set up for 500 for block heaters that would take 500 watts per.
Yeah.
Right, which is not enough, because if you look at the typical EV on a 15 amp circuit, it would use 12 amp, right? So it's not sufficient. But Sam's an electrician, and he said no, they're not, and maybe he could explain that a bit more. Sam?
They're not. Like Raymond said, they're rated for about a share between 2 or 3 cars. So they're not, and an EV plug has to be rated for maximum, like, use for only 1 charger per plug has to be identified and dedicated for it. So we have to be careful when we say you can use the existing system and make sure that they're not sharing the circuit between 2 plugs or whatsoever, because then you'd have to remove a plug, and then people will complain because they're going to lose their plug. And you also have to change a receptacle to a single receptacle and identify it as electric vehicle charger.
Okay.
But my question was more, is there something we can do to stop those Enviri quotes? And maybe, like, our job is to tell people, like, the good part of EV and the reality of it and all that. And when, like, I've seen a couple of those quotes, and if I was a condo board member, I'd also say we're never going to get electric chargers in this building while I'm on the board, because we're going to go bankrupt. They are out of this world expensive, and maybe we should spend a bit of time on trying to figure out how we can stop these guys, because they are putting barriers to condo people of having electric cars.
Yeah. So I've had discussions with Enviri in the past, and we should think about how can we intervene here. Let's think about that and see what we could do. Maybe a bit later in the summer, though, and because it is a big problem. And I've had one condo, the one where William Lawrence, lives. They got an estimate of $2.5 million to electrify all their parking spots. Right now, that would include digging up asphalt and trenching and all that kind of stuff in their case. But 2.5 million, there's no way in heck they'll ever do that, right? So so we
Even
need
with a
Sign me up
even
for
with a
that
properly
contract.
funded reserve fund, it's never going to happen with a properly funded reserve fund. Like you'll have to wait until that asphalt needs to get resurfaced, and that's like that
Yeah.
has a 25, 30-year lifetime.
Yeah, exactly. So Alain, you had a comment, question?
Yeah, I think the idea is completely terrible to actually give a corporation the expectation that having people living on 110 volts is realistic. I'm telling you, I've tried at my house before I bought a level 2 charger. I'm like, hey, I'm going to be smarter than everybody else. I'm going to be running out of that little 1 charger. And honestly, every 3 days, my car was ended up at Nissan having to wait there in the parking lot for an hour or two to actually put enough juice back into it so that I could keep driving it. And this is in the fall/early winter. So
Yeah.
if you can I finish this question a second? I think what you should be telling boards is to install 1 or 2 level 2 charger and a bunch of 110. So the person who really needs to charge its car and get that power back can actually go get it charged overnight and be able to actually operate the next day when he needs his car. Because the person who's not going to be able to operate his car is going to be going back to the board, and then now it's going to complain, and then that's going to start looking back on you guys for making recommendations.
But so Alain, so I understand where you're coming from, and you are right. There are cases where 120 volt is not enough, right? There are cases.
So you can't go out and
no. Hold on a second. Here we're talking about an underground garage that's relatively warm, right? Where there's less issues in terms of winter and that kind of stuff. What I recommended to them is if there were some people who did not have enough or needed more range or whatever, that they would put dedicated 240 volt circuits for them, and make it very clear that this was a privilege they were having at this point in time. That would be revoked at some point when there was the need to put in a larger infrastructure for to support other chargers. Okay, so yes, we thought about that. Yes, we talked to them about that, and it's an important point to emphasize with every board, condo board, that there may be situations where, for whatever reason, and I was thinking more in terms of how much mileage someone has to do because of where they work or whatever it is, that there needs to be a solution for those people. Absolutely. Okay. So Alan, sorry.
It's just going to make a great recommendation, but you can't just go up with blanket statement.
Well, no, it was not a blanket statement. What I told him is, most of your people will be, if you look at the average commute, it's 30 kilometers a day. That should be enough for most people. If there aren't, then you need to figure out some special solution for them. We'll talk about another special solution a bit later in the roundtable.
Yeah, actually, I'll give you another situation where you end up with people like me who have an older Leaf. Now the battery is at 80% of its original capacity.
Yep.
And then crossing the city of Ottawa and coming back takes a full battery.
Yep.
Right? So now I'm going to have to sit my car there for 24 hours to recharge.
Yep. But Alain,
I'll buy a gas car.
Why don't we table this for the round table, and we can Alan can ask his question and we can move on.
Yeah, and Alain, just to finish on that, you are in the minority, right? You're one of the ones who has the older car and all that. Most modern EVs today, they will charge 8 or more kilometers per hour of range, charging on 12 amp 120 volt, and they don't have that problem, right? So yes, there are special cases we need to take care of, but the majority of cases should be okay with 120. Alan?
Yeah, so just a couple of points on this. First of all, the wiring for 120 is often good enough for 240 for a 20 amp 240. Mm-hmm. So if it's an issue of breakers, okay, that's one issue. But if there's room in the breaker box, you can change that 120 to 240 pretty easily.
Yep.
The second point is those garages better be heated if they're doing 120 in the wintertime, because most EVs need 240 in order to do battery warming. 120 is usually not good enough for battery warming on the modern EVs.
Yeah, so absolutely, most underground garages they're not very warm, but they're above freezing.
Yeah, as long as they're above freezing, that should be fine.
Right.
But if there's any kind of openness to that garage, like some of the buildings here or nearby, they've got, it's basically a mesh. It's open and it's cold.
And I could tell you there's other cases. If you look at Lawrence and his situation, he was plugging outside his Model 3 in the dead of winter and was able to deal with it. He would top up once in a while on the level 2 charger when it was really cold, but he was able to get along with 120 volts. So the different vehicles will behave differently, right?
So you're saying the Tesla, you can get heating with 120?
He was able to, yeah.
You can, but the charge rate is almost nothing.
Yeah.
Because my dad did that at the cottage. Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on the temperature.
Maybe we should move on and not get stuck in the weeds.
Yeah. Dan, did you have another comment, or did you just not turn on your hand?
Oh, sorry. No other comments. Thank you.
Okay. I did want to talk about, I'm going to have to run through a bit faster then. Upcoming events. Okay, so next Green Drink should be interesting. They're going to talk about mass timber again. They had a previous Green Drink where they talked about mass timber. I don't know if you guys are aware of what that is. So the idea is to use wood for structural components instead of using steel or concrete. The reason to do that from an environmental perspective is that when you're building with wood, you're sequestering carbon in that wood, in the structure. Whereas if you're using concrete or steel, the production of concrete and steel actually represents about 15% of greenhouse gas emissions worldwide. So producing steel and concrete emits lots of greenhouse gases, but this instead, it sequesters greenhouse gases. So if you're interested in that, you're more than welcome to register and see that. And it'll be recorded like every one of the sessions is. The next one is, this is Mike, who's been working on this over the last little while. So what we're going to do is on Saturday mornings, for those who have time and are interested, we're going to do a fairly informal thing. We're calling EVCO Cars and Actually, Mike, why don't you talk about it a bit?
Yeah, it's a very informal thing called EVCO Cars and Coffee, where basically you can show up anytime between 10 a.m. and noon on a Saturday. We're going to be at spots all across the region, not just the same coffee shop every time. And I tried to get as many independent coffee shops in there. I did have to end up and go to a Timmy's and a Starbucks and a Bridgehead once in a while just because of locations. But for the most part, it's campy little hipster independent coffee shops. And the idea is to just show up on a Saturday morning, have a cup of coffee, maybe a croissant or whatever you're into, and talk with other EV owners. There'll at least be a few EVs there, so we'll probably draw some random coffee shop goers. And that's the idea, is to just go to people where they are. And while we're all standing around with our EVs drinking coffee, people will hopefully come up and ask us questions. So the idea is to be casual, inviting, big tent. We're not there to nerd out about FSD or whatever. We're there to just have a good time, be approachable, relaxed, and just say, look, I've got this cool car, and hey, do you want to come sit in it? Whatever, and just enjoy. It's a fun event. It's low key. And if you're interested in test driving, let them know about the Test Drive Tuesdays that we'll be doing with EVX, where every Tuesday we will have test drives available. And the idea is we're going to try and set it up so that the coffee is in the same area of the city as the Test Drive Tuesday. So for now, it's just randomly across the city, but in the future, we'll try and make them co-located with Test Drive Tuesday. So you can just tell them like, oh, if you want to test drive this, show up here at Tuesday, and off you go.
And yes, Dan, beater EVs are allowed.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, just bring whatever EV you've got, because they all have a story, right? Like the idea is to just show up with your EV or a plug-in hybrid, whatever. Enjoy, have some coffee, have some fun, just chill. And then if somebody asks you about your 10-year-old beater Leaf like mine, great. And you could tell them fun stories about how, all the trials and tribulations of being an early bird leaf owner kind of thing or whatever.
Yeah.
So for anyone who remembers EV drinks way back in the day, in the before times, we had stopped doing them, and then we had plans to relaunch it as basically this. This is it.
This is it. Yeah, EV Drinks was a little problematic because it was in a pub that was sort of in the back of a building, like inside, like deep in the bowels of a building in the glebe, and alcohol and driving, not so good. And it wasn't very approachable. It was at night. It was usually on a busy evening of the week. Whereas this is a Saturday morning. This is just, come out, have some fun, chill. People will be around doing their stuff. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So the first one will be on April 2nd, and actually it's on Facebook, right? The events are on Facebook?
Yes. So I'm putting it on Facebook. We'll put it up on Instagram and Twitter. And we do have a YouTube channel, just in case you guys want to subscribe. We have an April Fool's video coming up on April 1st that you're probably going to want to see. So you may want to check out EVCO's YouTube channel. But the first event is April 2nd, so that's this Saturday coming up. Honey Coffee Bar in Stittsville. I wanted it to be at Quitter's Coffee, but apparently they closed like 2 weeks ago for good. So I had to move it. So it's now just down the street, Honey Coffee Bar.
They quit on you.
They quit on me. Well, I think it's because it was Kathleen Edwards' bar, and she's a good musician, and so I think she picked up her music career again, so she's off doing that now.
Okay.
And Ruth has a question.
Without a question, I'm right up the street from there,
Mm-hmm.
and it's now another place has gone in there called Equator Shop. It's still a coffee shop called Equator.
Oh, good. Have they opened, or are they still
affiliated with the other ones?
They look to. I'm not a coffee drinker, but they look to be open.
Okay. Well, it's I'll put them back on the map. But for now,
Is it
we'll
the
stick
same
with Honey
people
Coffee.
as in Hindenburg and in wherever else that place is?
I don't know. I just know there's two coffee shops almost across the street from each other.
Yeah. Okay. Good to
know.
know.
Is that Equator? It's a really good coffee place.
Yeah, I'll put it back on the map. I'll put it on the sched. Maybe we'll hit it up in the fall or something. But for now, it'll be Honey Coffee Bar, so just down the street from Equators.
Cool. So if you're interested, it's on the Facebook, and maybe we'll figure out a more formal way to make sure we have presence at every event. But for now, we'll do it through Facebook.
Yeah, so these are the ones coming up for April. So take a screen cap of this if you want to show up. I'll also be posting it on Facebook. I've already created the events on Facebook, so you can just say attending on that and it'll remind you. But these are the dates and locations every Saturday, 10 to noon.
Okay, the next one, sorry, the slide isn't too good here. So the next one is April 23rd, the Sustainability Fair in North Grenville. It's really Kempville, right? So so if there's anybody interested in attending that or coming with us to that thing, please let us know. We're looking for a few more people. We'd like to do test drives. We'll have the trailer there. This will be sort of like a dry run for the events we're running. So we'll want to test out our processes and all that, and see how that goes. Okay.
And
so
there's no Cars and Coffee that weekend either. Yeah, so I didn't put a Cars and Coffee on that weekend for this reason.
Okay. Cool. So Enviro Center will not be there at that one. But there'll be other people also that are not EVCO related that have EVs. But it should be a fun event. It usually is. The people there are really nice, and it should be fun. Anyways, that looks like Spencer there, right in that picture there.
Yeah, he's saying it's him in the photo.
Yeah. And he's saying this. So other events, okay. So I sort of I forgot to put the highlighting here. Anyways. This first event, April 19th, that's with the city. They're doing a bunch of things around Earth Day, and I'll be doing a presentation in French from 6:30 to 8. It's a virtual presentation about all sorts of EV stuff. And I believe, Mike, you're still on the hook for the one on the 26th, which will be the same thing but in English, right? Right, Mike?
Hang on, I'm typing. What now? What do you want me to do?
You're still on the hook for the one on the 26th, right? In English, the
26th.
same as I'm doing, but in English.
Yeah, I can do that.
And we have the fair in between there. Now on the 19th, May 19th, we have this is during the day on a Thursday. Okay, so we're not looking for a large amount of people, but it'd be nice to have a few more people that could be helping with that. So I will be presenting twice around lunchtime and right before 5 on EVs and on climate change. And what I want to do is have the trailer there and do some test drives whenever during the day that we could be doing that. So the MIFO is Mouvement d'Implication Francophone d'Orléans. It's like a French community center for Orleans. And they're doing it's for retirees. It's a environmental type of day for retirees that day. So they've asked us to come over, and I offered to do test drives and all that. So the idea would be, and I'm not sure exactly when it'll start in the morning, but I think it's around 9 o'clock in the morning. So we would be doing test drives throughout the day, and booking test drives for later if people couldn't. If they didn't have the time on that day. Ruth, do you still have a question, or is your hand still up from before? Ruth? Oops, okay, and he's gone. Perfect. Okay, so we mentioned already the Tuesday night events, right? So I'd like to start those in May, but Enviro Center was thinking more like June, but I'd like them to start them earlier than later because we have a goal of 800 test drives, and the sooner we start moving on that, the better, because we want to be able to learn as we move along, right? So we want to make sure that we're able to get several test drives in every night, and so we'll probably have to readjust our the way we do things after the first few ones to make sure we're on track, right? So Mitchell, you had a question there?
For managing those Tuesday night test drives, do you have a plan for creating a list so that you can figure out who's up on the list to get a test drive?
Yes, so that will be Enviro Center that will have a website set up for that, and those of you who want to participate in those events, so they will be using Enviro Center's staff for this. But we'll be asking for volunteers to augment the Enviro Center staff, right? So the idea is, they would bring one or two of the Kia Niros, and we might bring a few vehicles also, and have the trailer there and all that, and the trailer will have a tent and table and display panels and all that, right? That we'll want to set up for those events, and so we'll need a few of our volunteers for every one of those at some point. Okay. So, yeah, but I'd like
have the Kia Niros been ordered? When do we actually think those Kia Niros will be sort of in Ottawa and actually able to be driven?
That's a great question.
Yeah, it is a good question. So I talked again to Stuart on that, and our friends at Communauto are having some difficulty getting some firm answers from Kia on that. So we're hoping to get them as soon as possible, obviously, but supply issues are a problem with all cars, as you know. So hopefully we'll get those sooner rather than later, but I know Communauto is working hard on trying to expedite that as much as possible. Okay. Okay, so and then we'll have more. So we one of the things that we need to work on big time is filling out the rest of the calendar as soon as possible. I like planning events in advance so that people at least know when we might need their help, right? So and you could plan accordingly. So we're gonna try to fill out the calendar as soon as we can with as many events as we can, and hopefully you'll be able to help us out. Phil, you had a question? Is a question? Your hand was up, but it's down now, I think.
I think you just addressed it. Like I don't think you've actually fully answered Mitchell's question, but I think you've just kind of answered it. You've already asked for volunteers in previous meetings for these test drives and test rides.
Yes.
You have all our names, and you're going to be reaching out to us based on scheduling.
Yeah. So when we have the website set up with EnviroCenter, we'll send you information about that as to how to sign up and all. It'll be pretty straightforward, but we'll give you links on all that to sign up for time slots and for events listed there. So there will be something on the website for us to specify when we'd like to volunteer a time. There'll be another part of it though, where it's the general public that will ask for test drives, right? So but that's not ready at this point yet. Do you have another question, Phil?
Just a comment I just sent to the chat about MIFO. It sounded like you might want more volunteers. I can bring my leaf, so reach out to me if that's of interest to you.
Sure, it would be definitely. It is during the day though, okay?
Yeah. So as the date gets closer, let's get in contact with each other then.
Okay, great. I'll note that.
Yeah, super.
And you speak French, right? Which is
oui, c'est ça.
Yeah.
Passablement, en tout cas.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Okay, so I think that's pretty well. Oh yeah, the one thing I wanted to mention, which actually Mike stole my thunder there, but
I scooped myself.
Mike, yeah, you scooped yourself. So actually, I really like what Mike has done. What he's done here is he's got our meeting set up by the year, and we don't have that many from 2021. We'll get more as we move forward. Here on the outreach section, there's some presentations that we've done for other events that are on YouTube already. That Mike has been able to link into here, which is great. So, if you're looking for some information on a number of topics, many of them have been covered here in some of these sessions there.
Mm-hmm. And just so everyone's clear, I cut out the roundtable portion of our meeting, so that's not on YouTube for public consumption. That's us talking, but the presentations and everything are generally put up on YouTube.
Yeah. And the stuff that we talk about at various other public events, it's really it's as current as sometimes there's a few items that need updating, but most of the stuff is current, right? So feel free to use and refer to it.
As I mentioned before, there will be a new video on April 1st coming up. It's already in the can and ready to go. It's going to be funny. It's just a quick little thing. You can share it. Feel free. But we also, Nick and I plan on doing a bunch of road trip challenges and a bunch of other content in here. So it won't just be our meetings because those are kind of long and boring for some people. There'll be a lot more entertaining content as well.
Yeah, and you can see there's only 9 subscribers, so I'm hoping that by next month we'll get a few more. So, Thomas, you had a question, comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to say hi. I'm a new member, and I really wanted to say thank you for the great list of vehicles there on your website. I'm based in Kingston, but you guys seem to have a really great organized club here, and yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. And then I was just wondering if at some point I could just ask Mike a few questions offline about the Ioniq 5.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime.